22-year-old Holly Cassano was open and outgoing, maybe to a fault.
I don't want to say she's naive because the word naive just sounds so negative, but she really was so innocent. She lived in a small town, so I don't really think that being cautious or being worried is something that came natural to her.
But what did come naturally to Holly was being a good mom to her adorable 17-month-old daughter, Alexis.
Alexis was starting to say new words, and she was really excited about that.
She worked 2 jobs to support her daughter.
Holly put down roots just a stone's throw from her mom, aunt, and grandmother in the neighborhood of Candlewood Estates.
She loved everyone. She talked to everyone. Everyone in the park knew who she was.
Then late one night, just after Halloween, Holly's bright smile would fade forever, when a true-life monster would stalk the streets of Candlewood Estates in Illinois. That evening, Holly was working a late shift at the supermarket. Her mom, Tony, takes little Alexis to meet her for a goodnight kiss before bedtime.
And then we said goodbye, and that was the last I saw.
It's an image that now haunts Tony, along with a final phone call late that night.
She had called me. She was getting off of work. And she says, "Mom, one of my friends here at work is making cookies, and I really, really want to stay and have cookies." I'm like, "Be sure that you're back to the house early enough so that you'll be up to get Alexis in the morning." "I promise, Mom, I promise. I'll get her in the morning."
Tragically, it was a promise Holly would never keep. Holly gets home just before midnight, sending a text to a friend, the single word, "Hey."
That occurred at about 11:16 p.m. that night. It went unanswered.
When it comes time to pick up Alexis the next morning, Holly's a no-show.
I decided I was going to go over there and wake her up.
Tony races over, then goes inside and sees something no mother should ever have to see.
I walked through the house, and I called for her, and she didn't answer. And I went back further into the house, and I would have never thought that I would ever see a scene like that in real life.
Spread out on the bedroom floor, covered in blood, it's Holly, stabbed to death. Tony's heart sinks.
I sat down next to her, and I calmly prayed to God, and then I picked up the phone and dialed 911 and told them my daughter was killed. They told me I had to leave the house. I had to go outside. But I didn't want to leave her. And I watched them take my baby out of her house in a body bag.
I'll always remember seeing them, but how it affected her falling to the ground.
Investigator Dwayne Rolfs is struck by the unimaginable cruelty.
It was a very violent scene. There was a large amount of blood in the bedroom area. There was also blood in other parts of the home as well.
Blood from an overkill of stab wounds, 60 times with a knife. The final blow straight to her chest.
Her body was moved and positioned maybe after she was killed. There was seminal fluid that was swabbed along with blood evidence from the scene itself. It was possible that she was sexually assaulted after the homicide was committed.
Sifting through the grisly scene, cops discover a critical clue. The killer had injured himself as Holly courageously fought for her life, leaving drops of blood all over Holly's home. Blood evidence, seminal DNA. Now cops have to match that evidence to a killer, and everyone's first question is, could it be someone Holly knew?
I don't feel that it was random. The way they killed her, the way they mutilated her body afterwards.
According to family, Holly didn't have an enemy in the world, except for maybe one. Loving single mom Holly Cassano, home alone, savagely murdered.
It was obvious this was a brutal attack.
That brutality left Holly's killer wounded, his blood all over Holly's home.
There was a large amount of blood that was found inside the home, and it was offender blood.
There was no time to waste. Cops needed to find Holly's killer before his wounds could heal. Police then canvassed the 600-plus unit mobile home park, Candlewood Estates, interviewing co-workers from the supermarket where Holly worked.
We watched video, tried to find the subjects that came in contact with her.
Detectives gather DNA swabs numbering in the hundreds, but they don't get a single match. The rage of the murderer told cops this was no random act of violence.
Somebody who did this to my niece had to have known her. There was so many reasons that it shows that it was personal.
Investigators zeroed in on one of Holly's exes, but science soon revealed another dead end.
8 years later, we still don't have a match.
Eventually turning to new state-of-the-art DNA analysis, investigators were later able to narrow down who they could be looking for.
It's very, very possible that this offender committed a similar crime in the past, and if he hasn't done it since, he probably could do it again someday.
It would take nearly a decade before cops would know for sure, but finally, a huge break in the case.
I think deep down inside, you knew that one day this day would come.
In a stunning development, investigators ID the prime suspect, a man named Michael Henslick.
And I think you can help bring closure to a lot of people, including yourself.
So after so many years, what led investigators to his door? Turns out Michael and Holly went to the same high school at the same time and had mutual friends, but were never close. The gruesome crime scene had all the clues right there in blood and DNA. Parabon Nanolabs, which specializes in familial DNA testing, was brought in to help trace the crime scene DNA to the actual killer.
So by the time law enforcement comes to me on these cold cases, they have exhausted all other avenues of investigation.
Cece Moore is chief genetic genealogist at Parabon. She traced the killer's genetic details back to the 1600s, then worked forward. DNA pointed to two potential suspects, Michael Henslick and his younger brother.
I handed over the names of both brothers, but I definitely put emphasis on the older brother because of circumstantial evidence that made him seem like the more likely candidate. He went to the same high school as Holly. They were 1 year apart. He also lived very close by, and perhaps most notably, he had charges from domestic violence and strangulation.
Investigators obtained Henslick's matching DNA sample from a discarded cigarette butt.
DNA evidence, that's irrefutable.
Henslick insists he's innocent.
Your story does not make sense. I want to know the real reason as to why you decided to kill her.
Police grill him with questions for 5 hours. After hours of back and forth, cops call out his lies, then take the gloves off.
Because I'm sick of sitting here, listening to a bunch of coming out of your mouth. Did you kill her or not?
You did.
How?
I stabbed her.
Where?
All over her.
Finally, a confession. But why did he take the young mother's life?
Why'd you kill her?
There was nothing in it.
You're so tough, you killed somebody, you can't even say it. Why?
There was no reason.
When the case goes to trial, Michael admits that he was there the night Holly died, but in a bizarre turn, he suggests someone else was the killer.
When she asked her how I failed, not just failing in that situation, I failed to call 911.
The jury doesn't buy it. He's found guilty. The judge says he targeted Holly, sentencing him to spend the rest of his natural life in prison.
I think that the life sentence was appropriate because now he can't hurt anybody else.